are you? Thank you for
Doing,
joining me today.
yeah, thank you so much for having me. Doing well. Yeah, I just got back from tour a couple days ago, kind of acclimating back to reality.
It's been 2 weeks since the album came out. How has been the reception so far?
Really, really good. Yeah, we've gotten some really good reviews. I think we had a good Blabbermouth review, which was really exciting. Let's see who else. Stereo Gum got a mention in there, so that's super exciting. But a lot of like good feedback from just like fans and publications. So it's been exciting.
Did you anticipate this good reception from the audience?
I hoped for it for sure, but like there's always like some nervousness around like whether
Right.
people are going to enjoy what you're doing still.
Well, in speaking for me, the experience of the sequencing of these songs and well, the grace with which your sound unfolds throughout the record seems very carefully placed. And for me and for many, the impressive thing about this thing is that you capture the spirit of Americana with heavy music in a way that I have not heard it before. So my question to start this conversation is, can you walk me through the process of how this record took form in this sort of ambitions?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we did our last record three came out in 2019. We took a little break from writing after we finished that up, and did a little bit of touring, and then 2020 hit, and we kind of weren't able to like be in the room together for a while.
Hmm.
So it sort of started with kind of being a little bit far flung from each other and sort of working on ideas individually. And then by the time we were able to kind of come back together, you know, we all had like little ideas and riffs and stuff to sort of work off of. And we spent a lot of time just really collaboratively playing together, like jamming on ideas, and sort of slowly the song sort of started to take shape.
Hmm.
We didn't really have like an intention for the sound, other than just sort of like following each idea kind of to its logical conclusion. We try and work in a way where it's like, here's the idea to beat, like, can we beat it? Can we make something that
Hmm.
we think is more interesting or more cool? And so we sort of just let these songs take shape, like in that kind of an organic way, um, sort of all based off like sort of small ideas that we all brought together. Um, Once we were sort of further along in the writing process, we started doing a lot of demos. The songs took a lot of different forms. Some were like sort of solidified immediately as like, this is the form, this is the song. And then others took like a lot of shapes. Like we'd listen back and say, oh no, I don't, you know, this part, like, do we have anything else? Let's jam around and play around with it for a while. Um, and eventually sort of found like its place in the album. And the demos sort of allowed us to like play and be in the moment on the songs and then listen back critically, which was really helpful. And then once we actually took these to the studio and started like working with Kenny, the engineer who engineered and co-produced the record with us, he was able to kind of see the vision and then help us take it even further and add like smaller kind of like ear candy and ideas and things that would sort of reinforce the vibe and the idea that we wanted to come across in the music.
So in a way, the studio shaped the concept or the overall picture of the record.
Absolutely, yeah. So with like the lyrical content and sort of like the focus of the album, and on that level, it really was driven by like I wanted to write lyrics that sounded like they fit with the music. And so like for each song, like on the song Dig My Heels, it has this sort of like back and forth like duelingness of like these heavy parts and these kind of twangy parts. And so I was like, this feels like a conversation between two people, and that's sort of what informed the lyrics for the song.
Now, the one of the things or the many things that pop up on this on your sound is the different elements sprinkled throughout. Like there is some sort of psychedelic, proggy stuff, country ambience, spacey landscapes, you know, and it seems to be like very uneven, all of these ideas. So how did you find that center, that nice spot for your sound to not sound overwhelming or just weird or exaggerated?
Yeah.
Was it difficult?
I think it really just it yes, it is difficult, I think, but it really just takes a lot of like time and a lot of sort of back and forth between all the members inside of kind of giving input and saying like, oh, this feels a little bit too much in this part. Let's bring it down here. Um, and just trying to, it's like a delicate balance of like trying to keep it interesting,
Right.
but not be like so all over the place that you can't like wrap your head around what it is. And I think that sort of our own style, our own like playing limitations, our like kind of palette that we paint with, like be it like the sounds that we use, like our guitar pedals, our amps, things like that, sort of help to keep everything cohesive. Like we don't have like an endless like well to pull from with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think having like some of those limitations sort of helps to keep it in check.
So pretty much time and being able to lay back and observe the songs was your work on your favor for this record.
Yeah,
Would you repeat this type of process for the future?
I think so. It'll definitely, I'm sure it will change and evolve with just like where we are mentally and what the band is doing next. But I think we've kind of found the way we work, and I think it'll change depending on like what we're all listening to, what we're all being inspired by, like what movies we're watching, what books we're reading, whatever. But I think the process for record making, we've kind of started to find like our lane really with this record.
Hmm. There's a feeling of nostalgia in your music, in a sense that, how do I say this? We can hear influences or reminiscences from the past. It sounds like an old Hollywood movie, sometimes. But at the same time, the sound palette is anchored in the ideals of the present, music that defies easy categorization. So, what do you think of arguments like music nowadays has nothing to offer compared to music on the 70s or 80s? There is nothing new, and yet there is strong efforts to innovate, like, for example, your band with this record.
Yeah, I feel like now is like a really interesting time to be like listening to, consuming, and making music, because you can have everything all the time, which is really
Right.
insane. Like we're no longer limited by like what's on the radio, what's in the record store that's local to us. It's now like if I want to hear like you know like you know like Indonesian psych rock from the 70s, like
Right,
I can
right.
hear it right now. If I want to hear like garage rock from the 90s in Mexico, like I can hear it right now. So and also on like the flip side of that, like all the bands that are like all these tiny bands like spread all over the world that are doing like cool and strange and amazing things, and even if they don't have like a huge audience, like they're out there and we can like find them and hear them. And so I think that like to say that modern music like doesn't offer anything is like a really narrow view of like what's happening in music. Like because we're so dominated by like mainstream music, at least
Yeah.
like in America, like it's like Taylor Swift and like other big pop
And
artists
and
everywhere.
even with metal, the
Yeah,
same
oh
bands.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I like Black Sabbath got a Grammy like 2 years ago or something like that. It's like they're the first metal band and they're somehow still, like the metal band, which like, no disrespect to Sabbath and no disrespect to Taylor Swift.
Right.
But like, there are a zillion tiny bands out there doing like strange and amazing music, and you can find them. And like the allure of like the 60s and 70s for music and the 80s is like truly magical. Like,
Yeah.
they made incredible records, and I'm like kind of guilty myself of really being stuck listening in a loop to like some of those things. Like whether it's like Devo and the Buzzcocks or like the Beatles or whatever. Like I can listen to those records over and over again. But yeah, like there's so much happening right now.
Yeah, definitely. And because of it, one band can make an album and it's easily forgettable or just inconsequential, but yet a band like yours that it doesn't have much of a bigger audience, but yet puts so much effort into making something special, a good piece of work that is like, I don't know, just refreshing and something new and unique. But at the same time, you see that the mainstream or the industry doesn't appreciate that much being fresh, right? They like to
Yeah.
do things the same. So you have to conciliate that perhaps you will not receive the attention or um, being rewarded as for your effort, but the audience still is like paying attention. So there are two aspects of the music nowadays that seems divided, which for you or for the band is like um, I'm not saying that you are seeking success, right? Because you are making music for your own sake. But do you think the audience is more ready for bands like Bask nowadays? Because I think you mentioned that we have access to everything in, like, in the moment, and I do think that this music, as a listener of all types of music, I think that this is a continuous conversation in a way that I can connect dots from this band and another band, and I say, oh, so this reflects our times, maybe in an unconscious way, but you see similar ideas sparkling in several parts of the world, and now you have a new intention, a new way of pushing heavy music forward. And I think of Bask as one of those bands. So yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like from the root of it, like I don't know if people are like ready for it is like a stranger. I think there's definitely like a group of people out there who are like receptive to it.
Hunger
You
or
know?
craving, something like this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And I see like, a lot of times like, we don't have a huge fan base, but like we do have like a really like excited, dedicated fan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's really beautiful to get acknowledged because like we really only make the records like for ourselves. Like there is no thought of like people will like it if we do this. Like I wouldn't know how to make a record that way because like I can't pretend to have my finger on the pulse in a way that would like make any sense. Like I don't know what people want out of music.
Mm.
But I do think that people want things that are fresh and things that are like that take risks, or things that like come from like real people in real places and have like a sense of like we made this because we really cared about it and wanted to. And I think that like speaks for itself.
Often these two aspects, like being an honest band and also an honest that likes to how do I say this, likes the challenge of making something unique and to his own. For example, I mean, what I'm trying to say is a band can make silly music, but yet being honest to himself or to the
Yeah.
artist. But so what I'm trying to say is, how do you balance your own inputs to make it sound honest, to make it thought provoking, but yet don't lean in too far into any aspects of it. I don't know if I make sense right now.
No, I think I get what you're saying. Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is I think we just so happen to like be excited by things that are challenging.
Mm.
So like we want it to be like heartfelt, we want it to be like honest.
So
But we want it.
sometimes it's like finding a solution for the song, for the thing that you are trying to make.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I see.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like a puzzle almost,
Okay.
Um, and like the end goal is like something that's like uh, interesting and feels like real and honest.
Well, I don't know if proliferation is the right word for it, but in the last few years, the heavy music in the United States has been populating with bands that are making music with the identity of your land, why do you think that is? Like, in your case, your interest for the folk sounds of your own place, your own context, and it seems like there is a resurgence of heavy music with a new identity and a new way of presenting, um,
Yeah.
for American bands in particular.
I think part of it is like taking the lead from other genres and other like uh, other countries. Like I don't think anybody would argue that like black metal doesn't like feel like Scandinavia.
Right.
Um, and I think that people maybe have seen that and then seen like a lot of. I feel like there's other bands from other countries who have sort of been embracing like folk ideas and folk sounds and infusing that too. Um, and maybe like America is just kind of starting to catch up with that. But then again, like you have the whole idea of like desert rock and stoner
Mm.
rock, so it's kind of
Mm.
always been there.
Yeah.
But I think that other like us being in Appalachia, um, and like me personally, and then some of the other guys in the band growing up with like folk music from the area and like folk traditions from the area, it feels natural to sort of like have that be infused. And as like a kid growing up like into rock music, like there was almost like a rejection of like those things when I was younger, and then eventually kind of coming back around to them. Um, but I think a lot of fans in heavy music have kind of seen like, oh, look, if you can make Scandinavian black metal, if you can make Norwegian black metal, I can make like Northeast black metal. Like I can make metal that feels and sounds like Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington, or like Arizona, or for us like a heavy sound that includes like some of the folk traditions and music of like this area too.
Well, I like to observe, I like to watch how these bands are coming out. For example, a band like Whitefather from Denver, Colorado, which I think you're familiar with, perhaps, I don't know. Um, it's so exciting and so refreshing to see black metal going into that direction. And me as an audience, what I appreciate the most is when I listen to a band, whether it's new to me or not, I discover a new sound, a new way of experiencing this type of music. And for me, at least, this new record, The Turning, comes out like at the perfect moment when I'm seeing all this band like really digesting, really making this his own art. So my question to that is, this record sounds and looks and evokes that because you wanted to. It's a concept record, but in the future you see the band leaning towards a different aspect of this world of ideas, heavier, perhaps.
Yeah, nothing is off the table for us. I feel like like we have like a way we work and certain sort of a palette that we like to use. But like I know that I and then other members of the band are very open to change, and like we'll follow what we're interested in at the time of the writing of the next record.
But there are things that won't change. For example, I think that you found your tone, your voice tone for this album. It's
Yeah,
very peculiar. It sounds like many things, but nothing exactly. So you will continue to push forward in your vocal abilities too.
yeah, I think so. I think within like the palette that we work from, I could see like having that, but like the content, the aesthetic, could still change. I don't think it'll be like wild or drastic or anything. I think there's a really natural progression that you can see like record to record for us.
Right.
But I don't want to take anything off the table. I want to be free to kind of to make anything
To
that we
make
feel like.
make unexpected turns right along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems exciting, and I think it's a good thing to educate your audience, your own audience, to expect different things, and even if to challenge, to in a way not being a fan service, so to speak.
Totally. Yeah, and
Please continue.
I remember talking to someone else that was in like a pretty successful heavy band one time, and they were talking about writing the new record that they were working on, and they were like, yeah, but it's like if we change it so much, then like the people who liked it before won't like it anymore. And I just remember thinking like, God, I can't imagine like
Mm.
having that as like a central tenet of like the work that you were making. And I feel really lucky that like I feel like a lot of the Bask fans are like up for the challenge of like the evolution.
Um, let's say the presence of Basque grows with time, and you become successful. Let's hope for. Do you see yourself changing these aspects of convictions in the band to seek the comfort of the audience? Or
I think the only thing that would change is like um we would probably buy a lot of nice gear. And and I can see a world where like maybe we would go completely crazy in the studio, and they people would be like, "What happened?" There's like synthesizers and all this stuff. Like I could
right.
maybe see that happening in a world because like when you lose your limitations, like you can kind of lose your style a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't see any like intentional changes based on success. Other than that, like we might be able to spend, you know, 3 weeks in the studio instead of 1.5 or whatever, and spend more time on the record, which I think could make a more thoughtful, well-made record. Or in the off chance we could go off the rails, you know what I mean? But I
Right.
don't think that.
Right. Well, let's hope for the success of the band. I can only
Yeah,
hope.
thank you.
Um, Another thing that I want to ask you is about the implementation of different instruments. Did you like sort of try out different things, or the things that you looked for were the proper ones, like a trumpet, cello, banjo, I think.
Yeah, the so some of the stuff that we play ourselves, like banjo, we tried out different ideas and vibes for that. But with that, like in the cloth, the song that we have some banjo on, like
Mm,
the second that we wrote that part that the banjo is in, I was like, I can hear it, like it's there somewhere in there. There's like a banjo part. And
mm,
then when Jed started messing with it and playing with it, it was like, yes, that's it. Um, there were other songs like uh, where it was more experimental, like some of the piano stuff on like Long Lost Light and Dig My Heels. Like that took more like kind of playing around and seeing. I was like, there's something here. I think that maybe could be here. Um, and then for the record, once we kind of had these ideas and demos for the record, we actually brought like better players in. Like I played keys on the demos, and then we had Alex Tobe, a local musician here, come in and play piano on the album. Um, and then for Long Lost Light, for like the cello. Um,
beautiful song, beautiful.
yeah, thank you so much. I'm so happy with how it turned out. It was sort of we were working on this song, and we were kind of like, this feels like our take on like a Magnolia Electric Company song. And
Mm,
I think there's this one song from them, I think it's called The Big Game Is Every Night, that had this really like sort of dark brooding cello that sort of reinforced the low end of the song. And that was kind of the jumping off point of like, oh, what about cello for this song? And then once Franklin came in, who Franklin Keel, who played cello on the record, he sort of brought like, took it way beyond like what that song that we were referencing had in it, and sort of made it its own thing.
And how far on the process of making these songs did you realize the right sequencing of the track list? Like, for example, the turning is the centerpiece, right? But yet to have all these like arc of continuation within each song in which you unfold a new thing, and the audience like is expecting something, is like the idea of something is getting in our heads. Then we get to
Yeah.
the last two songs, and it's like, okay, this is the equalization that I was hoping for. The band delivered, but on your end, how was this process of getting the right order?
It was some trial and error. We sort of had an idea of what we wanted the track listing to be when we went into the studio, and then by the time the songs were done and mixed, we sort of had to rethink everything, because we wanted them to flow and move and like unveil the record in a pace that worked. And then also you're working within the constraints of like a vinyl record, so 22 minutes per side, so that always sort of went into it. And when we got finished recording and mixing them, sort of the some of the track links have kind of shifted based on like what we added in or what we cut. And but once we had everything done and all the songs were in hand, it was like it became pretty apparent that the order that they were in was the right thing. We had to move some things around, but we were like beginning with like Chasm and Dying Sun and then ending with The Turning is what made the most sense.
Also, another thing for me, speaking for myself, is like when the first time I listened to the record, I am like excited. I knew that it was a good record, but the second time, even though I wasn't as familiar as I am today with all this reproduction of the record, I realized of like, wow, this is honestly, I'm not lying here. I realized like, this is really unique. I cannot put my finger if in any other thing that I have listened to that sounds like this, that make this evokes this scenery in my head. I don't have a question for that. I'm just laying it out to you. What do you think about the second time, the second listening experience of this record, like taking better form in our ears, in our head?
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, thank you. We wanted it to be unique. We didn't shoot for it. We just sort of let it be what it is, you know, and like let all the influences of all the individual members like have their say. But yeah, I think for an album, the arrangements on the record are pretty dense, and I think at first listen you get like the picture, you get like the broader picture of it.
Right.
But you know, on any kind of like an album with like dense arrangements, I feel like once you get that second or third listen is when you really start to like focus in and see like the patterns across the record, and they sort of emerge and take shape.
And also because it doesn't seem like you rush things over the songs. Like you expect the audience to take the time to leave the songs breathe, marinate in our heads, and then you come out with something unexpected. But do you think it will work differently if you have used a different tempo or even a different slightly energy, like more emphatic, more, I don't know, loud?
Yeah. The dynamic and like the speed is all really intentional for sure. You know, like dynamics, especially for us, are something that's really important, and we kind of realized early on in the band that like the way to make something sound like massively heavy is to give the audience like something soft, like to contrast it again.
Right. Yeah. So in the future, you might would you consider to reset your sound, like the starting point to be different, like no longer spacey, cowboy, Hollywood-esque, but a different thing, or do you see yourself building up from this platform?
I think like cinematic is always going to be like something that sort of creeps its way into it, just because it seems to be like a thread from like the first stuff we wrote to now. I feel like it'll probably always stick around or be something that we're shooting for, and giving those like songs like space and time to breathe sort of, I think, also contributes to that like cinematic element. But yeah, I could see a world where it takes a different shape and a different aesthetic. But we're really big on like not forcing anything, you know, like on doing what we want and what we feel like doing and what sort of is speaking to us at the time. But like maybe we'll all get really into, you know, like something that's aesthetically really different between like writing this record and writing the next one, and it'll take like a big shift. But I feel like the basis for what we do will kind of be in the same world, even if like the aesthetic kind of changes slightly.
I want to pick your brain for a moment, your music taste, and ask you for something recent that you have discovered that blew your mind as an artist or as a fan of music.
Yeah. Let's see. Hayden Pedigo is someone who's been really, I've been really enjoying their music lately. It's like American primitivism. Guitar music is kind of like the short answer for what it is, but he's using like other elements, and there's like electric guitars and pedal steel, and they just released the first single off a collaborative album that he did with the band Chat Pile, which was really cool that I just checked out recently.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I didn't hear the name, but I'm placing the name.
yeah, Hayden Pettigo. And he also he released the third record in this trilogy of records. I think it's called, is it like the Auto Trilogy? I can't remember, but all the records have like a car or a vehicle of some kind, like in the image. You might recognize like the first record in the trilogy is like a painting of him in like corpse paint, standing in front of like a red big rig truck, like a two-wheeler truck.
Okay.
He makes just like beautiful guitar music that like is pretty transformative, and I've always been a fan of the genre. Like right now, also Daniel Bachman, who's in a similar kind of world of guitar music, but a little bit more like kind of out there with like drone and experimental sounds. He's working on a record right now where he goes and finds these like notable trees in like the area of Virginia that he lives.
I see.
And he'll like run the guitar like signal through like a tree and record it in like the middle of a river, and it's like part field recording, part like composition, but it's really cool and beautiful. Those are two. Camp St. Helene is another band that I've been really into recently. They're like kind of like psychedelic, folky, like British folk rock revival from like upstate New York. They put out a record, I think last year, that I've been still kind of can't get over. It's just like good production and good songwriting. Man, I'm sure there's a lot more.
I need to mention Lingua Ignota or Christine Hayter. Are you familiar with her?
What's the name again? I'm sorry.
It used to be Lingua Ignota. Now is her own name, Christine Hayter.
I don't think I'm familiar.
Okay, I can write the name here, just if you are curious about it.
Yeah, please.
And she mixed, as Lingua Ignota, she mixed folk with harsh electronics and sort of opera and church music.
That's awesome.
But as Christine Hayter, she did a record that is, I want to say, like Appalachian folk, like acoustic, but it's really, really unique. I believe that's her name. And another artist that I discovered recently is from Arizona and mixed country, Americana, Western stuff with sludge, stoner, and even trap music, some electronic things to it. It's called Moosback. And
yeah.
Have you heard it?
I think so, yeah. I need to dig deeper into this though. But that sounds killer.
Yeah. I'm just mentioning this because, as I mentioned earlier, connecting these dots, realizing that there are artists with the same type of, similar type of inputs artistically, and seeing the outcome and seeing, I'm very much a man of my time. I enjoy what it's been doing nowadays, and I enjoy, paying attention to it. And I don't know, I just wanted to say that you should listen to Lingua Ignota if you wish, and Moosback, you're already familiar with him.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. It sounds great. And yeah, like going back to what you're saying about like, these threads, I feel like part of it might be like a product of, again, like us having access to all these things and just people who are just like open and curious and have like an adventurous spirit when it comes to music,
Like perhaps you may influence a new band or an old band in another part of the world and sound similar, but have some similarities to it, but we never realize, right? We can only assume that it's like a nourishing of musicians within each other, right? Yeah. Well, I have one final question for you. If you could compare the concept, the scenery of this record with another piece of art, a movie, a picture, a book, anything beyond music, which one would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if it's like the perfect answer, but something that kind of immediately comes to mind is El Topo. Have you seen that movie?
Popo.
El Topo. It's like an acid western essentially. It's
Oh, from the 70s.
Jodorowsky, and it's maybe not a perfect example, but I it's
Is it by Alejandro Jodorowsky?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, okay.
Yeah. And but the first time I ever saw it was like a pretty transformative experience because there was a group of musicians in Nashville who were doing live scores to movies. So you'd show up at a venue and there'd be um, a drummer, an upright bass player, a synthesizer player, acoustic guitar, and they would improvise a live score to a film. And El Topo was one of the ones that they did, and it was just like totally blew my mind. They did an amazing job, but just the movie itself also, and I've watched it since then, in its kind of normal form. I think it does such a great job of sort of taking a familiar idea, which is like the Western or the spaghetti Western, and like completely rearranging it in a way that it's like fresh and strange and beautiful, and like you can't like shake. Um,
Is El
pretty
Topo
interesting.
is El Topo your favorite movie from this director, or do you have
Probably, yeah.
probably? Okay, I will watch that movie. I have only watched Sacred Mountain, I believe is the name.
Holy Mountain.
Holy Mountain. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very trippy.
Yeah, very. Yeah, and this one is as well, for sure.
Yes. Um. Also, before I let you go, I don't know if you are familiar with Mexican music, like Mexican folk music, but nowadays, country from Texas or from, I don't know, the Appalachians, it's um, permeating through our music, and it's interesting how it's crossing the border, artistically. I don't know if you have
Yeah.
heard of any examples or are aware of it.
No, but again, that sounds very cool. I'd love to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope to speak with you in another time. I
Yeah,
enjoy your
please.
conversation. Thank you for making room for me today. Hope to see the band here in Mexico in the future.
We would love it. Yeah, we would love to. It'll be amazing.
Awesome. Well, have a good rest of your day, man, and enjoy
You
your
too.
weekend, and
Absolutely.
see you in the
And thank
future.
you for the thoughtful conversation. Thank you so much.
Have a good day, man.